Here's a problem you've probably never thought about. Before stethoscopes, before reflex hammers, before anyone even knew what a pulse was or what a heart did, how did you tell if someone was dead? Not dead as in, we're pretty sure. Dead as in, we should bury them and not wake up buried alive. This was a genuinely hard problem, and for most of human history, people got it wrong. A lot. So how did ancient humans solve it? The answer is weirder, older, and more disturbing than you'd expect. The first layer of death detection isn't something anyone figured out. It's something we inherited from animals that lived 400 million years ago. When a body dies, it starts breaking down immediately. That process releases two chemicals with very honest names, putrescine and cadaverine. Putrid and cadaver. Your nose has special receptors, trace amine associated receptors, that are hardwired to detect these molecules. You don't learn this. You're born with it. In fact, researchers have found that even when people can't consciously smell putrescine, when it's diluted below awareness, it still changes their behavior. They get more alert. They move faster. They want to leave the room. It's an ancient circuit that says, corpse nearby, danger, move. This instinct didn't just keep our ancestors away from rotting meat. It kept them away from the predators that were also coming to eat that meat.
But here's the problem with this system. It only works after decomposition starts. What about the moment right after someone dies, when they still look like a person? This is where things get strange. When you see a freshly dead body, your brain breaks a little. You have a system that recognizes living things, agents that move, blink, make eye contact, and you have a system that recognizes objects, things that sit still. A corpse triggers both at once. It looks like a person, but it acts like a rock. Your brain doesn't know what to do. Psychologists and anthropologists call this an animacy detection malfunction, and we didn't invent it. Other primates experience it too. Scientists who study chimpanzees have documented what happens when a chimp dies. And here's the thing. The reaction depends entirely on how the death happened. When an elderly chimp named Dorothy died peacefully of heart failure at a sanctuary, her caretakers wheeled her body past the rest of the group. Chimpanzees are loud animals. They scream, they hoot, they're constantly moving. But the entire troop fell completely silent. They lined up along the fence and stared at Dorothy's body. Some of them reached out and touched her face.
The quiet lasted for a long time. They were processing something their brains weren't built to understand. Compare that to what happens when a chimp dies violently in the wild. In Gombe, when a male fell from a tree and died, the group erupted. Alarm calls, aggressive displays, frantic hugging, then abandonment. And in the Ivory Coast, when a leopard killed a young female, the males dragged her body around before dropping it. Same species, same question, is this person gone? But completely different answers depending on context and relationship. Our ancestors went through the exact same confusion. They just had more ways to deal with it. So ancient humans started testing. They watched for signs. Hippocrates, writing around 400 BC, described what he called the Hippocratic face. Sunken eyes, cold ears, a sharp nose, skin tight across the forehead. He said, if you see this, death is coming soon. But the problem was distinguishing deep unconsciousness from actual death. People in comas look dead. People in deep sleep look dead. So cultures developed tests. In medieval Europe, someone would hold a mirror or a candle to the person's mouth. If it fogged up or flickered, they were still alive. Simple, but not reliable enough. By the 1700s, the fear of being buried alive was so intense that a Danish anatomist named Jacob Winslow argued that gentle tests were useless. He recommended pouring warm urine into the patient's mouth, sticking pins under their toenails, whipping them with nettles, screaming in their ears. He said if they didn't flinch, they were dead. German authorities eventually took an even darker approach. They decided the only way to be absolutely certain was to wait for visible decay. So they built special facilities called corpse houses, Leichenhäuser, where bodies were stored with bells tied to their fingers. If the bell rang, someone was still alive. If the body started to smell, they were finally declared dead. But here's the remarkable part. Even before they had reliable tests, ancient humans were already treating their dead with extraordinary care. 430,000 years ago, in a cave in northern Spain called Cima de los Huesos, the Pit of Bones, someone dropped at least 28 bodies down a 13-meter shaft. That's a 40-foot drop in complete darkness. And among those bones, archaeologists found a single perfectly carved hand axe made of red quartzite. It had never been used. It was placed there on purpose. The oldest known grave offering in the world. 300,000 years ago, a small-brained hominin called Homo naledi crawled through pitch-black tunnels in South Africa and dug graves by torchlight. 65,000 years ago, Neanderthals in what is now Iraqi Kurdistan buried their dead in the exact same spot, generation after generation, using a giant limestone pillar as a grave marker, a site of memory. And 100,000 years ago, the first Homo sapiens in the Middle East were burying their dead in a curled, fetal position, surrounded by red ochre and seashells, objects with no practical use, only symbolic meaning. These weren't just disposal sites. These were rituals. People were doing something that no other animal does. They were saying, this person is gone, but we're going to mark it.
So 3 layers. Instinct. Your nose warns you before you know why. Confusion. Your brain can't process a person who looks alive but acts dead, so you test them. And finally, ritual. You stop testing and start marking. Ancient humans had no reliable way to tell if someone was dead. They got it wrong. People were buried alive. And yet, even in that uncertainty, they chose to care for the dead instead of abandoning them. Long before we understood what death was, we already knew what it meant.